The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, I didn't think I'd ever end up saying this, but I'm sure you didn't feel that you would be saying it either, that you are now officially a hip-hop star. Mullins, I thought maybe you'd have a country hit or something, but not hip-hop.
DJ Master Country Boyo.
That's not what you call yourself, is it?
No.
Have you got yourself, I don't know, all hip-hop stars obviously have to have an entourage. Have you got an entourage?
Yeah, I got a little smelly dog. I got a little smelly boy.
Good. Well, hang on, tick that off the list. Are you wearing this is a little bit cliche, I apologise in advance, but why not? Have you got lots of danglies?
Oh, I've
jewellery?
got far more danglies than I had 15 months ago, that's for sure.
Well, okay, that's that's more to do with COVID diet, I suppose. When's your tour?
Whenever Boris Johnson gets his thumb out of his ass.
Well, I'm not sure that's a prerequisite for launching your tour. So go on, for those thinking, what on earth are these two clowns talking about? You are actually number 11 in some hip-hop chart somewhere, aren't you? That's true.
Well, I'm not, well, kind of, yeah. So it seems even ridiculous talking about this. Absolutely stupid. But so I stood in for another DJ on the radio station. Yeah. And it was a Friday night show, so I thought, it's not going to cut it if I played like Nancy Griffiths and Dolly Parton.
Probably not.
So I did and I do love this music, by the way. This is my kind of, I do listen to this a lot. So I did a hip hop and rap kind of mix, and it was a whole mix. It was just a mix. I did it all on the, on the desk, and it's got to number 11 in the Mixcloud hip hop chart, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's Mixcloud. I don't think it has a huge amount of listeners.
Oh no! Don't do it down, Kev. You are number 11, and that's what counts. It really does.
The FujiCast.
This should have a dooch 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 dooch. No, that's not really hip hop, is it? Actually, I've got
DJ Kev in the room.
DJ. Yeah, that's the next thing you need to say. You need to always preface DJ Kevin whenever you go to say something now. Well done. I think I'm impressed. I
enjoyed it, I have to say.
Yeah, but do you think it's going to be a regular Friday thing? You know what they say when people go on holiday in Radioland, they're a little bit fearful that the next guy that comes in does a much better job. And I bet you the guy before you is not number 11 in the hip hop charts.
Oh no, he's absolutely brilliant. And bless him, he was in bed with COVID. He went on holiday.
Okay, right. Sorry about that. Well, hopefully he'll be back to. Well, maybe he'll take over your country show and.
Oh, don't it.
A country takeover. Anyway, welcome to the FujiCast. You and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're very welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail through, send a click at fujicast.co.uk. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry. It's a big old community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very welcome here. Kev's book of the week this week. What do we have, Kev?
Oh, hang on. Oh yeah. Oh. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
I'm ready.
This is the World Atlas of Street Photography.
The World Atlas of Street Photography.
Correct.
Okay.
I haven't seen any pictures of maps in it, though.
No, don't use that kind of book. And Michael Beecham is our guest, who is a supporter of the show. And I went down to, I've got to get this right, Gillingham. Well, initially I called it Gillingham, but...
Not Gillingham in Dorset.
Yeah.
You did call it Gillingham.
I did, yeah, and I called it that, and one of the links on the photography daily podcast on the Friday Photo Walk before I got to him, and he said, don't call it Gillingham, it's Well, he wasn't quite that bad. It's Gillingham.
Yeah.
I know that now.
Welcome back there, I tell you.
Yeah, but it's sort of the language thing, Kev. G is a Gillingham, and it's kind of known to be a Gillingham, so then they change it to Gillingham.
I would imagine it's in the Gillingham Facebook group right now. Man from out of town says Gillingham.
I shouldn't.
10,000 comments, loads of angry emojis.
I shouldn't think they gave a hoot, but I now know it's Gillingham. And of course you cancel. All these letters are interchangeable, Kev, aren't they? I mean, it's not Gulliver's Travels, it's Gulliver's Travels.
Correct.
The English language, eh? There's got to be easier languages to learn. Right, shall we start with questions? You're going to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Facebook group, of course. Thank you for your continued question posting, people. I will start with the last one, as I always do, or the latest one, I should say, not the last one, because there will be more, won't there? Won't there?
I hope so.
Daryl Walters.
I thought you were going into a bit of a DJ Kevin then.
Stop it.
Go on. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys. So this is from Daryl Walters.
Yes.
Hi, guys. Question, please. Interesting to know what is happening here. I've had X100V and I edit in Snapseed on the iPad Pro. It seems that when I import a RAW file from the Photos app to Snapseed, when you see the RAW file in Photos, it is in color. But then when you open it in Snapseed, the film simulation is applied as if by magic. It's great. I like it, as it seems like I have the file quality of the simulation to edit from. Is this a normal thing or something weird happening here? Thank you. Love the show, by the way. With a thumbs up emoji. Do you use Snapseed?
Not for a long, long time.
No, me neither. I don't have an iPad Pro. I don't have Snapseed, and I don't have Apple Photos. However, what I would say
So good luck with this one, Kev.
Yeah, what I would say is it's looking like your Photos app is seeing the RAW file, which obviously will always be in color, and that's the nature of RAW. And your Snapseed app is seeing the film simulation. There must be, I would assume, a setting in Snapseed, or perhaps so one of two things might be happening. Perhaps you're shooting RAW plus JPEG, and Snapseed is bringing in the JPEGs rather than the RAW files. Perhaps, don't know for sure, but perhaps. Or there might be a setting in Snapseed, such as apply camera settings on import or something similar to that. That's my best guess.
Yeah, well,
It's got to be one of those two things, really.
Yeah. Well, just embrace it. I mean, he says he likes it.
Yeah.
Hope it never changes.
There you go.
Okay, was Alexander. Following WOZ, was. Is that short for William or something? Was.
Warren, I would imagine.
Is it Warren? Okay, was Alexander. All right, Wazza. Following on from your comment. Well, I don't know. Was is kind of like a.
Why don't we upset him even more, even further? What do you call a fellow with a rabbit on his head?
I don't know.
Warren.
Okay.
You started it.
Oh dear. Following on from your comment last week, do you see a future in doing destination work in Europe? I've been seeing a lot of coverage about how Brexit is impacting Brexit. Sorry, I get my teeth right. Brexit is impacting touring musicians, but I've not seen if this affects photographers. I presume we'd have the same carne issues around our equipment. Does this effectively rule out destination wedding work in the EU? Carne is something that in the very early days, all you said to me, Kev, was carne. I thought, is there another word Kev can use? But you are right. I mean, that's going to be an issue, isn't it?
Carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, yeah, destination weddings in Europe are no longer a thing. I've turned away quite a few inquiries. And I do get a reasonable amount of inquiries for France, because I've done quite a few weddings there, so I've got quite a good kind of SEO presence in that world.
A couple of weeks ago, Kev, you were firing round opportunities to work in Europe within our little collective, and I was thinking, my God, Kev's getting more inquiries for Europe than he's getting for the UK.
Yeah, some weeks it happens like that. Yeah, it does. But yes, I'm not entertaining it until everything is sorted out, and I don't think it will. I mean, if they take the same attitude, if Europe take the same attitude as America, which they are absolutely within their rights to do so, and actually protects their own workers, so it makes sense, then you'll have to fight for a visa to go and work there, and you'll have to do the carne thing, which will be very expensive. Yeah. So in my mind, probably for now, it's a done deal that I'm not going to be doing destination weddings in Europe, and I'll caveat that with a big fat asterisk that says legally, because I won't do it illegally. And so I think I've seen quite a lot of stuff on Facebook already. Just say you're going on holiday, be fine.
Yeah.
Now
I've got two booked weddings that were booked before all the carnage thing started to, and which would have been done had we not obviously had this pandemic over the last 18 months. But so I still have those to do now, and I know one of them is a listener to this show, so I'm tiptoeing carefully through the tulips on this one. Although it's not that wasn't a clue to it being in Holland.
Well, I mean, it's really difficult, because there's an argument to say that why. If somebody booked you, say, 2 years ago, before we even voted for this ridiculous exit thing.
Well, that was more than 2 years. That was 4 or 5 years ago now, wasn't it?
Well, okay, but anyway, so they booked before anybody knew what was going to happen with the with the Brexit stuff.
With the arrangement, yeah.
Yeah, with the arrangement. And so what you're meant to do, you're meant to say, well, I'm really sorry, I can't do it, which of course is not right. It's not morally, it's not right. Economically, it's not going to be good.
No.
So,
and actually,
but then on the flip side,
actually, Kev, I want to go and do them because I love the countries.
Yeah, of course. But on the flip side, you've got the Europeans who will probably, quite right in their point of view, say, well, actually, you voted for it.
No, I didn't.
No, well, I know you didn't personally. Neither did I. But enough of the country did, and so what are you going to do? I suspect there's as there has been with all of this stuff so far. There's been quite a lot of leniency, I believe.
Yeah.
And at some point,
the adults will turn up.
At some point, the adults, when they've stopped having affairs with the and going to letting 2,500 VIPs into Wembley and all that kind of stuff. They will they will sit down round a table, socially distanced probably, because I don't think we're ever going to get out of this fucking mess. Then they will sort it out. But
Kev,
we do need the adults to turn up. You're quite right. Get rid of the idiots.
I don't think we're going to be socially distanced forever, Kev, by the way.
Well, we will if we keep this lot in power, making the decisions.
Anyway, that's enough from Politics Cast for this week.
Well, do you know what? A friend of mine died during the pandemic, not because of the pandemic, but died during the pandemic.
Terrible, yeah.
And I couldn't go to the funeral.
No, I know.
And it was the same day that, I'm not going to say his name in case we get in trouble.
I'll bleep it, Kev. Just say the name and I'll bleep it. I promise.
Well, you know what I mean. Our beloved was busy putting his hands where he shouldn't be putting his hands.
On Saturday, I never thought I would use a politician's name as an excuse with a registrar. But I went to the wedding venue, and you're granted the audience with a registrar beforehand because they want to lay out all the rules for you. Yeah, and I try to avoid registrars, and I try to avoid. Well, not always vicars, but because it's good to sort of go and press the flesh and say hello, pardon the expression, in the church. But I generally try and avoid the vergers because they're
been a lot of flesh pressing going on by our politicians.
I'm not being very cautious, am I? But I was summoned to the room to go and talk to the registrar to receive the thou shalt nots. And I thought, well, in these COVID times, I suppose, really, I get why you'd want to talk. This registrar said to me, "You have to sit down during the whole ceremony. I will sit there, and you can sit there, and the bride and groom will be standing just before us." And I said a couple of things. I said, well, number one, are they wearing masks? No, they're not. No, I know they're not wearing masks. So why would I want to be sitting below them as they're talking outwardly towards us? Mm-hmm. I thought, there we go. There's not a lot of sense in that, but I let that one fly a little bit. And the registrar said, "Yeah, okay, but these are the rules. These are the rules. We have to do what the rules said." And then I found myself saying, "Well, can I just say two words?" The registrar said, "What?" And I said, "Matt Hancock." And I smiled through my mask.
So did you have to sit down?
Yeah. But I did I rose up at some particular moments because I didn't want to give the bride and groom up your nostrils shots for their most important photographs from that part of the day. Did I really? Why would you want to do that? I didn't think there was an awful lot of thought in having to sit down in front of two people standing up, knowing how gravity works.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That didn't make any sense.
No.
We do still, I'm a strong believer that we still need to do the right things to help and make this thing go away as much as possible. I had my second jab last week.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has to be sensible, doesn't it? Come on. And if it ain't sensible, the people who are making these nonsensical decisions shouldn't be and all that kind of stuff while they're meant to be saving the world.
Kev, you've given me an awful lot of stuff to do with the bleep machine this week. You're doing this on purpose now.
It boiled my I have to say.
Kev!
I could go on.
No, please don't. I'm going to give you my best Gemma look. There we go. Right, your question.
Oh, okay.
Back to planet Earth. Thanks, Woz, for your question. Did we actually? I don't know if we answered the question. Oh, yeah, we did kind of. Do you see a future? Yes, I think there is a future in destination. I do actually. I believe that at some stage people are going to say, "Look, okay, we need to come to some arrangements."
But we don't have an arrangement with the United States in that sense. You can't go. You can't just go and photograph a wedding in the States without getting a visa and all that
Canada
kind of stuff.
or Australia. And I know that there are
a
lots of photographers that think they can just jet off to the Caribbean and do them. Officially speaking, not really.
No, but you could also take the approach and just say, "What of it?" Anyway, next question is from Stephen Hanna. He says,
"Do you need? I've got 10 mil of Ramapril here. If you like some."
I've been up since 4:30 as well. I'm not in a good frame of mind.
I can tell.
Hey guys, what are your views on editing weddings on an iPad? I'm a Capture One user, and with the latest announcement about an iPad version on the cards for 2022, I'm wondering, could I incorporate an iPad into my editing workflow?
Into your workflow, yeah. Well, why not? I tell you what, I love the look of the Pro. I haven't got the Pro, but the iPad Pro, God, I think I could use that. I know quite a few, having talked to them, photojournalists who now use that religiously within their workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have, as we just mentioned in the previous thing, I don't have any kind of Apple stuff. But saying that, yeah, I mean, absolutely. If professionals are using it, then why not? You can do it too. Yeah. My own personal take, if it was me, I mean, I've got a fairly high-end Android device, some kind of Galaxy Samsung thing or whatever it's called, and that also has, you can run Lightroom on there, and it's very, very good. Would I find it quite cumbersome to edit a whole wedding on there, even using the pencil and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't seem as slick and quick. And also, I'm not sure whether I would necessarily trust, if you've got an iPad, you're going to be tempted to, sit down in the living room with a halogen light above you, or maybe in bed with no light and everything. And so the color, I'm not sure about the colors, to be honest with you. But, I don't know. I don't know enough about iPads and all that kind of stuff. Technically, yeah, it seems like a good solution. But yeah, the iPad Pro does look ace, I have to say. I've seen a few of them.
I might be getting this tremendously wrong now, Kev, but in the early days of putting files onto old generation iPads, wasn't something odd going on within the engines that the Gremlins were in charge of that meant the photographs got resized or changed into odd formats and they weren't tremendously usable, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah, I mean, in the very early days, certainly, I think it was HEIC format Apple uses for their images. Yeah, but now I think they've kind of handed over the processing of the images to the software, the app, if you like, rather than the operating system. Yeah. So I think that issue's gone away. I mean, I remember I had an iPad once, and I bought it because, for this, I thought this is going to be great for kind of editing and stuff. Yeah. And it came with one of those pencils, those Apple pencils.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I could not believe the only way you could charge the pencil was by sticking it in the bottom of the charging port. Yeah. So it stuck out like a third arm. If you wanted to charge it at the same time as use it, you couldn't. And then I immediately, and I say immediately, like within a week, snapped the end of that pencil off because it was stuck in the bottom of the iPad. I'm assuming that's no longer an issue. For a company that is amazing at design, that was absolutely horrific.
Well, we still charge the Apple Pen from the port with a sticky out arm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that really a thing?
And I tell you something that I thought was really weird.
Does not do wireless charging. My Galaxy things, it connects on the back by magnet and just charges itself.
Oh, can you we were slightly older iPad, so maybe it can now. I don't know. But
I bet it must be able to do that.
One of the weirdest things was the Magic Mouse, which I love the Magic Mouse, but somebody thought, okay, well, we won't put batteries in them anymore. You don't have to put double A's in them anymore like the old ones. So what we'll do is we'll have you charge it from a lead. Okay, now that's fine, but they put where you plug the lead in underneath the mouse. So when it says it's not got any battery anymore, instead of just plugging it in and using it like a wired mouse for about 10-15 minutes while it fully charges, you have to stick it in the bottom and go off and do something else instead. Who invented that?
I tell you who invented that. The same fellow what invented the pencil charging system.
Yeah. Can you imagine taking that to Steve Jobs, rest in peace, Steve, and him saying, hang on a moment, I think you've missed something here, brainwave. And there's, yeah, Steve, you're so right, yeah. I wonder whether sometimes, I don't know who invents. Common sense sometimes flies out the window with inventions, doesn't it?
Well, I tell you what, Jakob Nielsen, he would not be liking it.
Jakob what?
Jakob Nielsen.
What's that?
Jakob Nielsen. Jakob Nielsen is the man of UX, user design. He's basically the guru of the lot.
Right.
In fact, right, I've just typed his name in to get you. Jakob Nielsen, PhD, is a user advocate and principal of the Nielsen-Norman Group, which he co-founded with Dr. Donald A. Norman, former Vice President of Research at Apple Computer. There you go. Dr. Nielsen established the discount usability engineering movement for fast and cheap improvements of user interfaces and has invented several usability methods, including heuristic evaluation. He holds 79 United States patents, mainly on ways of making the internet easier to use. He did it. I got when I used to do user interface design. He has a brilliant book of his, and he used to talk. It opened up with a great big tirade about doors. And like on a door, when you have a door in a pub or a shop,
is this going to be the push pull thing that you get very upset about?
If you have a handle on the outside, like something you have to grasp,
you want to pull it.
You want to pull it. Yeah, towards you. And if you have a push panel, then you want to push it. He's like, people who have doors with handles and it's actually a push door, you can just sit there and laugh because people will just walk into it constantly. And it made a lot of sense because that's the mind of the user is like that. The interface, the user interface of this device is telling me what to do. It's giving me clues.
Yeah.
And actually, that's just badly designed door structures, like the pencil charging and the Magic Mouse charging.
Well, there we go.
Bad.
I know you've always got excited about that because whenever we go somewhere, you say, "Look, it's a handle, and I can't pull it."
I went to a conference with him once, Jakob Nielsen, and it was brilliant. And I was with my first wife at the time, and she's like, "What's this about then?" And I was like, "Oh, it's about like design, user interfaces, and I explained the door thing and everything, and then we got divorced."
Yeah, she finally realised.
I think there was a reason.
Have I got to spend the rest of my life with a guy that's obsessing about doors? I'm just a slight obsession about doors, and I know this is just not solvable because if you pushed it, you'd end up sort of damaging somebody's nose on the other side. But I never quite get the concept of when you go to the toilet and you wash your hands and then you have to pull the door open. And I always worry about that because I'm thinking, well, not everybody's as diligent with me with the hand washing thing.
Well, no, but you see in a lot of places, especially in America, I've noticed this. You have your doing bit inside. Then you come out of the doing bit room, and then you have a communal area where they wash their hands, and it's open, so there's no doors. Then that makes a lot more sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you who didn't invent that: the guy that put something on the bottom of a Magic Mouse. I'm not sure, by the way, whether this next question from Paul Sillard, whether you're going to fall out with Paul. I hope you don't. Dear Kev, with two V's, because remember Paul Sillard was the person that said Ken in the last mail. Or did he say Ken, or was that somebody else? And Neale,
was him, yeah.
Note the extra V on Kev as last time. Oh yes, my iPad replaced Kev with Ken. So this is to make up for the shortfall. Love the show. This is your friend Paul Sillard, pronounced as Sillard. Just for context, it's spelt S-Z-I-L-A-R-D. From Sydney down under, Kev has frequently complained about double letters being a waste of space. But you know the saying about people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones? Well, the English language has its own abundance of double letters. How about cheese, or shout, or shoot? Need I go on? But I don't understand those. Well, but cheese, you have to have the CH there.
Cheese is not a silent letter. Otherwise it would be S.
It'd be keys, wouldn't it? And shout would be sout.
Yeah,
or shoot.
Those are not good examples.
No,
but
shoot.
I totally agree with him.
Yeah.
Silent letters. How many trees have we lost to silent letters?
Yeah. I'll give you Gillingham and Gillingham. Oh, that's not really silent letters, is
That's
it?
not silent.
No,
that's different pronunciations.
That's different pronunciations. I always listen to you guys when driving my Kia Sportage, and last week when I drove 1850 kilometres in 2 days. Oh, my word. I was tickle pink hearing my name mentioned on the show. Not once, but twice. Did we do it twice? We'll have to retract. Anyway, he's just corrected some of the things that we've said in the in the show from episode 186.
I read this email. I'm not going to get a cup of coffee while you read it out.
I'm not going to read the whole thing because it would take forever, and I'm sure Paul won't mind me not reading the whole thing. But just a few salient things.
I'm just going to pick my confidence up. I've left it under the desk.
At 22 minutes in, discussing why there's no white balance shift on the XT3. Well, my XT3, says Paul Sillard with a silent letter, and XT20 both have white balance shift, so I don't understand the poster's question.
Well,
I'm much less Kev's reply. Or am I missing something?
Well, that one he's wrong on, because the question was why can you not have white balance shift in custom settings, not why is it in the camera? Why is it not in the camera? It is in the XT3, but in the XT4 you can have white balance shift in your custom settings. Yeah. There is the difference. Kaboom. There. Where's my microphone? I want to drop it. Hang on. I'll use my headphones instead.
Yeah, see, there's a rapper in you. That's why you're number 11 in the charts.
The rest of it, I think he's right about that.
Well, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pickups. But one of them was about Carl. At 44:45, Carl Hare said you can get transformers that smooth out 60 hertz to 50 hertz. Oh my God, transformers can change voltage, but not frequency. And smoothing means removal, deduction, and not changing something. Sorry, guys, but this has to be said. Oh, there's one about me here. 44 minutes. Neale was alluding that LED light sources that are marketed for a 60 hertz country will flicker at 60 hertz, even when used in the UK where the mains is 50 hertz. I found that very difficult to believe. Well, I tell you what, Paul Sillard in Australia, come and shoot a wedding with me. Then you'd see that it does make a difference. Not that I'm getting angry. Quality LED lights are driven by DC regulators, have nothing to do with the mains, and cheap LED lights just have a switching mode PSU that switches at high frequency, way above and unrelated to the mains supply frequency. All right.
Yeah, I reckon there's posher lights in Australia because it's definitely an issue, and it definitely changes it. If you change the frame rate, shots per second, frames per second, to a multiple of 60. It does make a difference.
I think it's all GPS. Gremlins per second. That's what's going on. The gremlins aren't actually cycling fast enough. OIS versus IBIS. IBIS is better because the sensor's near to the flange point or flange distance. This got me really puzzled, as OIS actually moves an element inside the lens body at its optimal position, requiring less movement to correct vibration, then moving the sensor to do the same. If I can make a bad illustration, if you must, imagine a tennis ball hurtling towards you. Oh, I quite like this.
Yeah.
If its direction was altered a fraction of a degree at the point of the net, it would have the same effect as you moving quite a large distance sideways to reach the ball, i.e. small movement of the net, i.e. in the lens, has the same effect as a much larger movement of the player, i.e. the sensor. Does that make sense? Oh, never mind.
It does make sense to me. That's quite a good analogy, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Paul, I tell you what, it's hard sometimes. I mean, I have to say I lean on Kev as the resident expert, because when Kev talks about throwing away boxes, the first thing I throw away is the manual, because I read it and I think, oh, he's just not clever enough. So I lean on Kev a bit. And as you know, I know nothing about LEDs now. I shall get back in my box. Oh, I would do had Kev not thrown it away.
There was a guy on the Facebook group the other day who said he sold a box, one of his Nikon empty boxes. Somebody bought it for £30, and I was like, well, no, that's good for him, the seller. That's very good, £30 for an air entrapper. Yeah. But the person who bought the box, what a sad life.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about the person. You knew something about the person.
No. Oh, I do know something about the person. I have no idea who it is, but I know lots about him.
Yeah.
Probably eats a lot of pizza, lives with his mum, smells a bit, quite spotty, big belly, doesn't go out much.
You've just described somebody we know very well. Oh, me.
Watches those late night documentaries on Channel 4.
Oh, you.
The ones with the little red triangle in the corner.
No, Kev, stop now. Anyway, Paul says...
Are we still talking about Matt Hancock?
No, I do love your shows and will continue to listen every episode. I expect, though, I'm now on the ban list. So pray forgive me for my comments. From Paul Sillard. No, Paul, you're not. And actually, that's the that hopefully is the humour of this. That it's two blokes just trying to get it right who occasionally get it very wrong. Oh dear. Shall we go for our
we are still talking about Matt Hancock.
That's true, yeah. Right, let's go for our interview. Now, I went down to Gillingham in Dorset. It's lovely in Gillingham, by the way. It's a lovely town. Have you been there?
I have been there, actually. Yeah, it is very nice.
Yeah. Very, very, very pretty, very quaint. And I went to see an exhibition. And the exhibition, do you remember, in fact, let me go to his webpage here, Michael Beecham's webpage, which is The Sanity Within the Stasis, which I thought was a wonderful project. He essentially, I'm not going to give the whole thing away because that's what an interview is about, but essentially he shot a project during lockdown where he could go no further really than his garden because he was sticking regimentally to the rules. Wasn't he, Matt?
I've got to resign.
Yes. And so he's made...
Oh, look, a woman.
Kev, no, because that's unfair. I'm trying to do a serious piece of introduction of our interview here, Kev. So he made these tremendous photographs of the flora in his garden, and he put in fact, he put across his lens cling film. So these photographs take on a very sort of unworldly kind of appearance. So I went to see the exhibition that Michael is one-man show that he's got in Gillingham, and we spoke about the sanity within the stasis.
The collection is called The Sanity Within the Stasis, and it was a project which I started at the beginning of the lockdown, UK lockdown 2020, because we couldn't go anywhere, and creatively I found myself in a really, really frustrated and dark place. You know, everybody was struggling and suffering at one point, and I needed some kind of a creative outlet to at least try and get some of this stuff that was in me out of me. Obviously we couldn't go anywhere, and so the entire body of work was created in my garden, apart from 2 images, I think, but mostly in my garden or in my house, and trying to find creative ways of expressing, I think, probably a bit of a deep angst and frustration with where we were all at, and maybe fears over the pandemic, and the fact that it was all coming a bit close. We wanted to honour the government's guidelines as best we could, which was saying don't go out, if you didn't have to. I'm aware that everybody's living conditions are different, and we're very blessed to at least have a garden that we could go and sit in if we want to get outside. We were able to go out for our day's walk for an hour, but I didn't feel like I wanted to use that time with my camera because I was out with my wife and I wanted to be with her in that time and have the exercise. And also I didn't feel that it was a correct interpretation of the regulations to go out and take my camera and keep stopping, and it didn't feel like that was my regulated exercise. I know it's a personal opinion, but I wanted to stay in as much as I could. Probably a little bit of fear in there as well, to be honest.
It's interesting, actually, because you forget about that was one of the rules, wasn't it? That if you were out, it was for exercise.
Maybe there was that sense of stigma or guilt that if you stopped, people would be judging you for not doing the right thing and being indoors. And I think we wanted to mitigate that as much as we could. So we made the decision to stay indoors as much as we could at that time, which is very limiting creatively, and particularly when you're either a nature or a landscape, particularly a landscape photographer. If you can't go to the landscape, what do you do? Obviously we weren't going to be taking portraits of people or that kind of thing. So I had to try and come up with something that I could do with my camera, and the only thing I had really was my garden, which was as close to the landscape as I could get, I suppose.
But the landscape came to you.
Yeah, in a sense. And I guess these are the images are small, I don't know, nature portraits. Some of them are a little bit abstract, but the most that we could do really. And actually, it was really helpful to try and force myself to look at subjects that I wouldn't normally photograph in a more creative way and try and take some enjoyment from it.
So let's talk about how technically you made these pictures then, because they're I guess similar in their feel of softness, and I don't mean that focally, although some of them do have that sort of soft touch to them, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So I approach this in a way that I try and approach all of my long-term projects, which is I'm a big fan of consistency. So in order to do that, I'll choose some camera settings which I know will work. Obviously, we'll have to change that if the light changes, but by and large, I'll use the same settings. At the time, I was using my Fuji X100F, which only goes down to f2, and I knew that I wanted shallower depths of fields because I wanted to try and create areas of abstraction and areas where it's not quite as easy to understand what's going on in a scene. And you can't get that with an f2 as much as I wanted to. So most of these images were taken with cling film. Yeah. I remember having a conversation with you about it. So wrapping cling film onto the lens, leaving some areas of the lens exposed so we can get some parts of the image sharp. But the rest is pretty blurry, like you say, very soft focus.
It's a very small lens, the X100. So how do you mean that you were leaving some areas of it exposed and other areas with cling film? I mean, if you put cling film over an X100, it's completely covered.
Well, it is. I had to kind of really work with it, and I was working very close in and have my hands on the lens and just micro adjustments of the cling film as I'm looking through the viewfinder to try and find if I'm hitting areas of focus.
So it's kind of like the old trick of putting a sheer stocking over a lens to get a creative effect. You were using cling film.
Yeah, and I did buy a pair of Denier 7 tights to try and get the same effect, but it just made everything, you would lose the contrast there as well. It would make everything almost very, very flat and very lacking contrast. So tried that, didn't work, went for the cling film, and at least then I had a degree of control, and cling film is very good at not messing with the contrast, it just messes with the focus.
And it's cheap.
It's really cheap, although my wife didn't appreciate me using as much cling film as I did.
Yeah, you know there's a war on. We can't find cling film. Let's have a little look around and have a look at some of the different pictures. I mean, I think I recognise this well from the site.
The dandelion.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was. We tried not to mow the lawn too often, and we had dandelions growing up, and I do like dandelions. I think that sometimes they're photographed almost to death. I think they can be a little bit of a cliche, and you know the old blowing the dandelion and taking photos of the seeds in midair. But I love the idea of it, and I think there was a part of me. Actually, when I look at this photo, there is a part of me I recognise absolutely that I looked at I know it sounds morbid, but almost the death of something, and I wanted to try and represent that because I felt, certainly for me, that I was mourning. It really does sound morbid, I apologise, but I was kind of mourning the death of a way of life that I didn't even know whether we would get back. And I wanted to try and represent that. And I think that's the same for all of the images in this project, is I'm trying to express something of what I was feeling at the time. And nobody knew whether we would have a way of life back that we were used to. I think we're starting to get moments of that back again, but at the time we didn't know. You know, I hit a bit of a dark place, really, and I think, I mean, that's why I called it the sanity within the stasis. It's trying to find some sense of sanity in a season of things feeling very chaotic and very dark, and you know, I didn't feel that we knew what was going on or what was going to happen. You know, where it was all going to end up. And so this expression of trying to figure the internal stuff in me out, born these black and white images, which they're a little bit dark, I guess.
Well, they are dark, but I mean, as I said before, the sort of soft nature of them means that they're not stark, they're not depressing images. They're beautiful images, aren't they?
Thank you. I think so. I think I do think they're beautiful, and maybe the softness was a byproduct of actually what I was trying to do, which was create obscurity. I suppose it's trying to make areas of the image obscure because it reflected the sense of obscurity that I sense in the country, or certainly within me.
The interesting thing is, of course, that you've been able to, and we were in the gallery now. And let's move over here a little bit. So, but you're in the gallery now, and people are sort of coming coming in and looking around at your work, and this lovely benefit of being able to stand behind people.
It is, and try and gauge their reaction. I mean, there is an interest in me to see if people feel about the images or get out of the images at least what I was feeling when I created them. But also, I'm not necessarily sure I subscribe to the whole idea that people need to interpret images for themselves. I think some images can be obvious as to what it is they're trying to say, but I think these are abstract enough for people to interpret or to kind of get out the images what they want. That's the intention anyway.
Well, this rose here, this has a feeling of, and I've used this expression before for things I've seen of late, a feeling that it could be a charcoal drawing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges was to try and find the right kind of light. I had a bit of an image for some images, a bit of a vision, for some images of what I wanted them to look like, and obviously it requires lacking light, and so I waited until the dusk. These two images are of the same rose. So I hesitate whether to kind of tell this story, but actually this is a rose that was given to my wife. She had a cancer diagnosis in 2019, I think. She's been given the all clear. It was a really hectic time. But this is a rose that was given to her as a gift that hadn't fully grown. And I felt that there was a clear correlation between the reason why it was given and kind of what I was feeling on the inside, which is why there's two images of this one rose. I wanted to do something. Almost do a bit of a homage, I guess, to the situation that we were in then and the situation that we found ourselves in when these were taken. I would say these are my two favourite images personally, but
well, they've certainly got the most emotive connection, haven't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and. I think all of the images, these in particular, I think all of the images are born out of an emotional thing that is going on inside of you. I think we all do that when we take photos. We photograph out of ourselves to a degree. Whether we're having good days, bad days, light or dark days, and we photograph out of ourselves. So there is a piece of us when we take a photo, and for these two in particular, I can't not look at the rose, and I can't not look at these photos without knowing what's behind it, and the backstory, and they're very precious, as is my wife.
Obviously. I'm intrigued as to why it's beautiful. There's no reason for it to be in colour, but I am intrigued as to why you photograph landscape and all your work as black and white like this.
I think a couple of reasons. First of all, I've always loved black and white images. I seem to just appreciate black and white images more than colour. I don't know why, but ever since I picked up my first camera and I was able to shoot and turn them into black and white, that's just what I've done. I've tried to shoot colour in the past. I've done projects. Ironically, I'm a designer by trade, and my stock in trade is colour. I deal in colour every day, but I cannot for the life of me shoot well in colour, and I don't see images in the same way in colour as I do in black and white. Images and scenes are not as obvious to me. I'm not sure I would say that I see in black and white now. I'm not even too sure how you do that, but I seem to recognise what an image might look like eventually as a black and white image rather than a colour one.
I mean, I see obviously the opportunity of a book in this.
Yeah, I'm starting to think about. So actually, this was never the intention. The sanity within the stasis was always supposed to be just me trying to work something out. However, I've started to get these little rumblings inside that if that was a working out of what it was to be in lockdown and all of the pain and the darkness and the angst that went with that, well, we're moving out of that now. So it feels honouring to me, to myself actually, to create a body of work which almost kind of celebrates, almost like that was the prequel, this is the sequel, to celebrate the fact that we're feeling much lighter and things look a little bit more positive. So I've just started to create a couple of images, and I already know that this is going to be called the serenity within the stasis, because it feels lighter. It feels like we're moving into a much more positive place than we've been, and it felt right to kind of almost bookend that. We're moving into a better space. How do I photographically work that out inside of myself?
I know you're going to say you're going to use a well-worn sports shoe analogy here, but if I were to ask for your advice, because I think not everybody, that's nonsense. I think a lot of people, certainly people listening to this show, will have thought, I fancy an exhibition. I've really wanted to see my work on a wall. Any advice for those that want to do it without using the famous tick phrase?
I don't know, maybe consider it. I mean, yeah, it's cliche, and I'm not, we know what the advert is. It doesn't get done unless you do it. The hardest part is putting that first foot in front of you, because there is all of the emotional stuff inside of you. If you're anything like me, you will tell yourself that nobody wants to see it, nobody's that bothered. There are way more important things going on in the world right now than looking at your images. Maybe you just do it for yourself, but I think you have to just do it. I think you have to put that out, for yourself, if nothing else. But having tracked with 3 exhibitions now, having done it, I'm absolutely convinced that they feel like the natural end to either a single image, a body of work, a significant amount of time that you've invested into getting something inside of you out. Even if you don't show them, I would say get them printed. Having a body of work printed in front of you that you can tangibly look at and say, do you know what, I did this. This was me. Like this wasn't me trying to hide away. Even if nobody else sees it, maybe even if you, like Daniel Milner would say, if you just put it into one book, that's your copy, nobody else has to see it, you can say I did that. And that feels like a really good natural end to me of a body of work. For me, I just chose to be able to exhibit it because I'm able to. I suppose that's the brass tacks of it. I'm able to exhibit. I have a gallery space near me. I hope people just enjoy them when they come round, and if they do, great. But the work was for me first and foremost. Having done that, now I suppose in a way I allow people to see what I've done, and if they I always think it's a little bit like when you have a newborn baby and you taking photographs. You hand your newborn baby to somebody else, and you hope that they don't find it ugly. You think that you hope that they find it just as beautiful as you do, but eventually somebody's got to see your baby. Yeah. And I feel that with my work, I'm at the point now in myself where I'm confident to hand somebody my baby of a body of work and say, I hope you don't find it ugly. I hope you find it okay. And if they do, that's great. But it's still my baby, and I think it's beautiful.
My thanks to Michael Beecham. And on the show page today, you will find links to the exhibition. Plus, he is in the Facebook group, the FujiCast Facebook group, so you can talk with him more there about this whole solo thing, if you have been thinking along these lines. And of course, for those listening outside the UK or in the future, because that's often how podcasts are consumed as part of a diet to catch up and listen again, the exhibition will of course not necessarily be on, but the work will be available to view online, and I can't wait to see part 2, as Michael hinted to. So, this week, over on my other podcast, Photography Daily, I have 2 episodes on the free stream for you. Friday Photo Walk as ever is waiting for your ears at the end of the week, where we take a walk in the outside world, talk about photography and make some pictures together. But this Wednesday, a guest who has such a potent life story that it's been cut into 2 episodes. Now, one of those is going to be this week, with an extra edition next Monday. Jason P. Howe spent next to a decade working in a camera store, learning and watching, and then leaving to become a photojournalist. The type he'd met whilst working behind a counter. But Jason didn't just think about easing himself in. He sells everything he has and funds a trip to Colombia to make pictures of a civil war that's been raging for 40 years and taken the lives of 200,000 people, with 3 million further displaced. Jason recounts a story about arriving to make these pictures, learning how to tell a story of this significance on the fly, a baptism of fire from the word go.
They were fairly convinced that I was up to no good. So they made a call, a pickup truck arrived, a couple of guys in shades, long shirts with pistols and radios, no ID, put me in the vehicle and drove away.
He tells to some degree a love story with a country he feels incredible empathy for and with, and the story of a woman he falls for romantically, only to find out one day she is a hired assassin.
Yes, I have to say it didn't come as the huge shock that most normal people in normal situations would think that it would. So if you spend a fair bit of time in a war zone, almost everyone that you come into contact with is on one side or the other or involved in some way.
Stories of life told by photographers. And on Wednesday, on the Photography Daily podcast, that photographer is Jason P. Howe. Right, back to the questions. You go first, Kev, with your... Yeah, it's your turn with the Facebook, isn't it?
This is from Tom Verhoeven. He says, the GFX question. I was surprised that the GFX 100S doesn't have the HDR function like the XT4. It's a real time saver for some real estate situations with tight deadlines. Will it come in firmware, or is it technically just impossible because of the heavier files? Good question. I didn't know that it didn't have the HDR in the GFX 100S. I don't know whether it even has it in the GFX 100. I doubt it then if it's not in the 100S. I personally can't see any technical reason. I mean, it's heavy processing going on. You're going to have to, you'll be waiting for a while those images are processed in the camera, because these images are big.
They're humongous.
So maybe that's the reason why they haven't done it. I mean, yeah, I think technically there probably isn't a reason. But probably the kind of logical reason is, if you start running too many of these, you're gonna, your battery's gonna drain and it might get too hot.
I mean, there's a lot of things going on with all these exposures happening, isn't there?
It's blending of up to 5 files, So that's a big old processing shift, isn't it? Yeah, probably something to do with that.
Will Colin, hi Neil, hi Kev. This can't be the first time that you've been asked about sensor cleaning, but I'm a relative newcomer to the show. It's not an issue with Neil's new X100V, of course, but I'm starting to wonder when I need to bite the bullet and clean my 8-month-old XT4 sensor. Have you ever done this on any of your mirrorless cameras? Did you do it yourself, or did you get it done at a service centre? How often do you think we should be cleaning our camera sensors? Every year, every 3,000 shots, every 100 lens changes? I watched a few YouTube videos on the subject, and I think I'll have the nerve to do it myself, but I'd very much welcome any tips if you've ever done it on a camera with IBIS. Maybe this should be a question for Carl, but I have a lifelong aversion to the Book of Face, so I'm sending the question by email.
From the
Book of Face. Sounds like some sort of religious tome, doesn't it? Well, I do clean my sensors. I've cleaned DSLR sensors. I've cleaned mirrorless. By virtue of the fact that I clean the XH1s, the IBIS sensor doesn't put me off doing it. I don't use a high pressure, except when I get the scouring pad out. You're going to get that in really... Comes up beautiful, it does. But no, I'm very careful with it. And there are, I've never... your mileage may vary, as Kev often says, and just because I do it doesn't mean you should do it, but I've never found it to be a problem. But you don't touch that with a barge pole, do you, Kev?
I've never cleaned a sensor, ever. When I used to have my Canon system, which we'll talk about 12 years ago now, I used to send them off once a year to Canon Professional Services up in, where were they? Elstree. Yeah. And they would do that. But none of my Fujifilm cameras I've never even had the sensors cleaned. I mean, I did send, one of them had to go back once for a repair. My XT2, the top plate, something happened to that after about 4 years. So that went back, and perhaps they probably cleaned the sensors as part of the, general kind of fixing things. Other than that, none of my cameras have ever been sensor cleaned.
Well, I've got a packet load of APS-C sensor cleaning swabs here, and...
What's the difference between an APS-C sensor cleaning swab and a full-frame sensor cleaning swab?
It's going to be larger, isn't it, Kev? Larger. What's the size of this one?
Isn't it just a little sticky thing?
Sensor width less than 24mm if you're doing a full-frame one. Sensor width less than 16mm if you're doing a an APS-C? Because you're swiping across, aren't you, horizontally?
Don't know.
I'm sure Paul Sillard will have something to say about this.
I'm guessing if you're shooting at bigger f-stops, smaller f-stops, bigger apertures, f16 and beyond, then you're going to see more stuff. Perhaps I'm rarely at those kind of numbers.
Yeah, I mean you shoot quite shallow, so you're not going to see a lot of that, are you?
No.
You rarely see it in the shooting the style that we're shooting, of course. And you'll be surprised if you do, Kev, go to 8 or 11, and you'll think, "Oh my word, this is messy."
Yeah, probably right. If I was a landscape photographer, I'm sure that I would be getting my sensors cleaned accordingly. But yeah, I've never done it.
I only really noticed it when I was doing a lot of studio portraiture with high key backgrounds, and in the edit you'd think, "Oh my word, look at these! It's like orbs hanging in the air." They are. And so I would generally, because I change lenses quite a lot, I would have to do this every couple of months and in fact when I did the stuff in Africa, I was at one stage when I was out in the bush, I was changing lenses within a large plastic bag, because it didn't matter what you did, how careful you were, turning the camera upside down, whatever. It was just dust and moisture floating everywhere, and it was really difficult. So I think on that trip I was there 2 weeks. The longest one I did was 2 weeks, and I must have cleaned my sensors probably twice, maybe twice.
Yeah. I can imagine in that kind of environment.
Yeah. Or you get an X100 and you don't change it at all.
In f1.4 Malmesbury, not a need.
That sounds like a land. In the land of F1.4 Malmesbury. Yeah. So thanks, Will. Right. Do we have time for another question from Facebook, or shall we go for book? Let's go for the book of the week, Kev. Book of the week.
All right. Book of the week is
it's large.
The World Atlas of Street Photography, forward by Max Kozloff.
Right.
And then it just says Jackie Higgins underneath. So I'm not sure whether she's the curator of the book. It's not just her photos. Actually, it's a really nice book. I tell you what, as usual, it's easy for me to give a bit of the blurb that's written on it. The World Atlas of Street Photography focuses on the abundance of photography that has been created on street corners around the globe. It includes classic documentary street photography, as well as images of urban landscapes, staged performances, and sculptures. In so doing, this compelling reference book locates the meeting point between street photography and Atlas. There you go. There's the link.
There's the link,
between artists and their personal understanding of our environment, not via a cartographic bird's eye view, but through a more intimate, human-centered perspective. Oh, I like that. Not via, I'm going to put that on my website, not via a cartographic bird's eye view, but through a more intimate, human-centered perspective. From New York to New Delhi, Beijing to Brighton, Havana to Hamburg, and Sydney to Seoul, this magnificently illustrated book presents an international cast of more than 100 established and emerging contemporary photographers. And they're all named, but I'm not going to name them all. I'm just going to read 5 out very randomly.
Well, I'm sure you recognise quite a lot of them.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of big names in there. Yeah. But I'm just pointing. I'm doing the pin on the donkey's bum thing. Oliver Chanarin, Boris Savalev, Michael Itkov, and Claudia Zhujagaraib. There we go. But you're right. There is a whole lot more in there.
I'm glad you're glad you put the pin on the most difficult names for you.
I know. I should have gone for the ones at the end. Richard Wentworth and Graham Williams, Sue Williamson.
And Frank Smith. I love that Frank Smith's work. He's great.
Matt Stewart's in there. We know Matt, of course. I'm just trying to glance to see if there's any of the names that any other people we've kind of talked about on the show many times. Trent Park, Martin Parr, Gus Powell, Bruce Gilden, and a whole load of others. Anyway, so the book is big and heavy and really nice, actually. It's got that Atlas feel about it, and it's widely available. So essentially, each kind of page is a little mini story, if you like, or each section is a little mini story. So I'm flipping now. Page 89, Latin America, Mexico City, Monterrey, Lima, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Caracas. And then it names all of the photographers that are involved in this section. So there's obviously then the images, and then kind of little interviews and talks from each of the photographers. So some of the disappointing thing I think about this book, if there is anything that's disappointing, is that a lot of the pictures are very small, and there seems to be probably for my personal liking, a bit too much text to image ratio.
Right.
So, it makes sense in some cases for these small images because they're intersected with the text that's relevant to a certain paragraph, for example. But I would like to see more kind of larger images, perhaps. But yeah, so I'm in Naples now. I am on page 174, and I'm in Naples. Born 1959. Johnny Shand kid, born 1959, London, UK, lives London, studied Exeter University, self-taught in photography. This series, Siren City, 2000 to 2008, and then other genres, portrait. So it gives a little bio of each of the photographers, and then an insight into the work about the area. So I love these pictures here. You've got kind of, because Naples is one of those cities that's, it's got water, but it's also very, very kind of metropolitan. Or the buildings go basically right up to the waterfront.
I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of people kind of squeezing into every inch of the beach area there. And you've got kids on hula hoops and all that kind of stuff. Quite good abstract stuff in here. I really like looking at some of these images. I'm looking at one particular one now where there's a couple of people on the beach, and then you've just got somebody who's obviously jumping from behind them. So you just get the legs in the air, floating in the air. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I tried to do something very similar to that when in Croatia with the X100V, it would have been. Remember when we were traveling? It was very difficult shot. Sometimes you look at these street photos and you think, I could do that. It's a bit like this sort of when you go to an art gallery and think, well, that's nothing special. But actually, some of these shots are much harder to achieve than you would imagine, aren't they?
Yeah. And of course, if it happens just as you're kind of there, then absolutely, it's a great shot. So page 310 is Asia, the start of the Asia journey. Yeah. We've got Jerusalem, Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Tokyo, Delhi, Mumbai, Manila, Dubai, Seoul, and Hanoi. I'd love to go to Hanoi. And that picture opens with Peter Balborzeski, Manila, Philippines, 2008. Wonderful picture there of this. I don't know what you would call it, really. It's I don't want to call it like shanty, because this is where people live, isn't it? A favela, maybe. Anyway, this is a whole row of houses, but they're no more than really cardboard boxes, wooden boxes, and you've got all of the clothes outside. You've got people hanging their clothes outside the windows, if you like. You've got frying pans and all sorts being just hung up outside the house because of storage issues. And you've got this lovely picture of this old woman who's sat in this doorway, but her house is on the second floor. So the only way she can get to it is with a ladder. Wow. So her doorway is on the second floor. There's a ladder beneath her, and there's this old woman sat there just watching the day go by.
Listening to you describe it, these are kind of like narrative pictures, aren't they?
This one is particularly, yeah. And interestingly, there's an old, what would you call it, like a petrol drum kind of thing outside that people are using as a cooking pot. Yeah. And it's upside down, but the word on the petrol drum, if I turn the book upside down, says, ooh, somebody's written rescue. So I don't know whether there's like some kind of hidden message there. Like I say, the images I would like to see a little bit larger, but then I suppose, some people do like to read a lot more about the stories and the photographers and the photography. So maybe it will appeal to those people. It's not a particularly expensive book for its size, I don't think. It is around about, currently on Amazon, although, of course, you should use your local bookstores, £18. RRP is £24.95.
Right.
Yeah, good. I like it. I do like it. I had this for a very long time. I was actually, I was trying to figure out where I got this from. And I think it was when I used to write for Professional Photographer magazine before they kind of went out of business. They sent it to me to do a review. And then they kind of went pop, so it never happened. So yeah, it's a really nice book.
Does it feel quite instructional to you? And that I suppose with the text it would be, wouldn't it? Because you can really get inside the minds of those people.
Yeah, it's not instructional as in, I use this camera, I use this aperture, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there is a little bit of, I used a long lens because of this reason. Yeah. But more, it's more about, a lot of it is about the photographers talking about the reasons why they were in that area, the project they were doing, the psychology of the shoot, that kind of stuff. So it's a really nice book. I have to say, it's a really nice book. Well printed, nice big. It's a good one to have on your coffee table.
And affordable.
The World Atlas of Street Photography.
Okay.
I'm just going to put it back over here.
Did we do this one from Chris Stevenson before? Hi guys, bit of fun for you. Both in charge of your own camera company. You have an unlimited budget.
Yeah, we did it.
What revolutionary idea would you... it's slightly different, I think. Yeah.
We did it.
Did we?
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely did it.
Okay. Well, in that case then, can I have some more questions for email, please?
Well, there's one on the Facebook group that you put a note in to say, good question, let's make sure this is in the next show. So shall I start with that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Graham Ackworth says, hi team. We're a team.
Team?
I'm heavily invested in Nikon mirrorless, but fell in love with the XE3 in brown, purely on looks, he says. The kind salesman at the store tried to talk me out of it and suggested the X100S at the time. Now that Neale James has his new toy, the next model up, of course, can you tell me what I might be missing out on? I enjoy the ability to change lenses on the XE3, but usually just leave the 27mm on and purely use it for street photography. The flippy out screen, as Kev likes to call it, he says, isn't really an issue for me. Very happy with my purchase, but was curious why I might be talked out of this purchase. Is there much of a size or performance issue difference? Cheers from Graham, Brisbane, Australia.
Well, I've not used the camera that he is talking about. Well, you would know this. Is there a huge difference? I mean, I think the X100V, by the way, is one of the nippiest things to focus I've ever had in my hands.
Well, first of all, I'm fairly sure the reason why the guy in the store was trying to talk you out of the XE3 and the X100S is probably because he gets more commission on the X100S. More than likely.
Simple as.
If I was a salesman, that's what I'd be doing.
Okay.
Buy the things that bring me more money.
That doesn't seem ethical. Ethics have gone out the window.
I'm joking. I don't know. Because actually, why wouldn't he be talking about X100V? Yeah. So, I mean, XE3, X100S, 27mm, there's a difference. It's, the focal length is slightly different if you think about the 27mm and 23mm. Interchangeable. Yeah, I mean, size-wise, they're very similar. Same sensor, same kind of film sims, all of that stuff. The XE3, I think I did have an XE3 and I sold it because I just never really used it. My idea with the XE3 would be that I would stick one lens on it, constantly have it in black and white, JPEG only, and just use it like that. But actually, in the end, I just carried on using my X100. So, but now the XE4 is out with the newest sensor and everything. I know that's selling quite well. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? It's a personal choice thing, really. Ultimately, they're very similar in terms of build. When it comes down to this idea of interchangeable lenses more than anything. And then you've got to start thinking about cleaning your sensors. And who would want to do that?
Well, I've got some in here. Look. See, you could borrow one of those.
I thought that was chocolate then. It made me hungry.
No. You wouldn't want to eat one of these. If you had to choose between a 100F and save a few pennies and a 100V, I mean, I know you collect all the 100s, so perhaps it's an unfair question. But what's apart from the flippy out screen, as you call it, some of the main differences between that F and V that you'd think, it's a no-brainer, V every time?
Yeah, the V is I think the difference between the F and the V is the greatest leap between any of the X100 models.
Do you?
Yeah, so X100 to X100S was big. X100S to X100T was not so big. X100T to X100 F was reasonably big, but then X100F to X100V. Have I missed one out?
No, I think that's all of them.
That's it, isn't it? Then X100V is huge. Yeah, so faster to focus.
Yep.
Much better video capabilities. It's got a better sensor. It's backlit sensor. It's better in low light. It's got extra stops on the ND filter. It's just, it's a huge difference. And obviously it depends when you say save a few pennies, depends on how many pennies it is. But yeah, I would generally be, if I had to choose one now, it would be X100V. But of course, that doesn't make the X100F a bad camera all of a sudden. Just because a new camera comes out, it doesn't degrade the quality of the previous one. But if we are just talking specifics on specifications, then that's where we're at.
STFV Why the letters?
2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
What do you think of that, Paul Silla? I bet you didn't know that. He's going to write back now. I think you'll find.
What do you think the 6th one will be called then?
Well, it can't be S, can it?
No. Well, that's the reason why 5 is V rather than F.
Yeah, or VI. I don't know, Kev. Answers on a postcard. Mike Miller. Dear Neale and Kev. Oh, it's very formal. Dear Neale and Kev. Kevin, rather. I hope that you're both staying positive while continuing to test negative. Oh, that's how he started his last mail, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are, Mike. We are. In fact, Kev, now, with your 2 jabs, you can lick the handrails at Swindon Railway Station.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
Yeah, went there yesterday. It was great.
Especially to do it?
Just me and loads of other old people.
Kev, you're not that old.
I felt old when I went to get my 2nd jab. Blimey.
Did it feel a bit like, we talked about this before, a bit like Logan's Run?
That's right.
Which is horrible, actually, when I think about that.
Because they opened it up to 18-year-olds. They're all on the left at Bath Racecourse. And then us oldies were stuck in one, we were all kind of corralled into one little lane on the right-hand side where there were bright yellow cards. They might as well have just... those cards were blue and yellow. They might as well have just said old and young. Because
that sort of denotes which of the vaccines you're going to get, doesn't it?
No, well, not in that case. It was denoting whether you had your first one or not.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I went for the 2nd, they definitely had a Pfizer side and an AstraZeneca side with different cards. So we all went different ways. I've been meaning to ask this question since I started listening to the FujiCast. Since you're both social wedding photographers, can you give somewhat of a detailed explanation, or wait for the detail now, as to what exactly documentary wedding photography is and how it actually differs from the photography that I had done with my wife when we were married in 1986? Are there other types or genres of wedding photography? If so, can you give a brief overview if you are in need of some time to fill? Please. How does it differ from well, I mean, photography has, I was going to say it's matured, but that's nonsense, because photography matures through the years with every single year, and different photographers and the way that they approach things, they just do things differently. I mean, maybe mature is the wrong word, but definitely styles have changed. Although my mum and dad's wedding album from 1962 had some documentary reportage stuff in there.
Yeah, I think most people, all wedding photographers will do quite a lot of candid photography. Whether it's documentary or not is the debate, I suppose. For me, documentary is candid and storytelling, with a view of telling an overall story as well as stories within frames, rather than just like a headshot of somebody smiling, which I do. That's still part of what I do.
Yeah.
But generally, I've got my eye on trying to tell a story. And there's all kinds of genres of wedding photography now, isn't there? There's editorial, there's fine art, there's a traditional, there's that weird thing where you have two tiny people on top of a mountain and the man is dragging the woman up.
What?
I don't know what that's called. That's just weird wedding photography in my world.
Like the dinosaur chasing shots.
Dinosaur chasing, yeah. But listen, honestly, we jest. There is space for all sorts. My only real gripe is that sometimes you see people kind of proclaiming themselves as documentary wedding photographers.
When they're
not. And yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's not really for us to say they're not, I don't think. But it's a little bit disingenuous when, you search for documentary wedding photography, you find a link in Google, and then you click on the link, and it's clearly might be very, very beautiful, fine art, staged, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's not documentary photography. And that's, we've talked about this before, isn't it? It's like having a shop that says we sell apples outside, but actually they only sell oranges. It's, still fruit at the end of the day.
How's it changed, though, from 1986, generally, do you think, wedding photography as a genre? I mean, at 86, we would still have been in that time where wedding photographers were doing 2-3 gigs a day, because they would turn up, do the church shots, do the shots outside the church, then whoop, off to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very different then, of course, because the technology was different, using film, the prices, the price point of editing, of course, was a lot greater. Couldn't just simply take 2,000 pictures on a wedding day. So yeah, in many ways, in fact, I 100% believe this, that good wedding photography in those days would have been much harder to do than it is now, for sure.
Yeah.
But the technology we have now and the affordability of it all means that perhaps we are a little bit more creative, I guess. And I think that's probably what's born these different genres, these different styles of wedding photography, which is great because, if you do want to have a picture of yourself dragging your now wife up a mountain somewhere, a tiny little picture of you on the top of this massive mountain, then you can have that. Yeah. I'm sorry, that is one of my pet hates, I have to say. And I'm sorry for everybody. They do look beautiful. I get it. I do get it. It doesn't really say wedding day to me, though.
Are you talking about the tiny shots of people in the huge vistas? Are those kind of shots?
Not so much those, because I also understand that sometimes people get married near a huge vista because they want to have that thing.
The landscape
The landscape. What I don't really understand is why you would want a teeny people in the corner, right, and the man looks like he's dragging her up the hill. Just every time I see that picture now, I'm just going to think of...
It's going to take you a while to get over this, isn't it, Kev?
I'm never going to get over him.
No. And, he had a second part to this question, so did Mike. I had some nieces and nephews get married over the past 7 years, and when I look at their wedding photos, I'm absolutely aghast at the quality of the work that was produced. Underexposed, no edge patrolling, trying to use an on-camera flash from 30 metres away outside at dusk. I have to bite my tongue. I don't suppose that's a question, that's more a comment. Although I will ask the question, though, Kev, on this one. Have you ever been showed a wedding book? Now, obviously, I'm sure it works the other way around, where we may have made a picture and somebody else may not completely appreciate our approach to it. But have you ever seen a wedding book, Kev, where someone said, "Oh, Kev, you're a wedding photographer. Look at this. What do you think of this?" And you look at it and you think, "Oh my God, look at this." What do you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has happened, but I'm never, unless it's picture of two teeny people on a mountain being dragged up a hill, I'll always be very diplomatic. But yeah. Honestly, in most cases, when people show me their wedding albums, I take a hint. I take my tea from them, really, because if they love their wedding pictures, because it's their wedding, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether I think it's appropriate, different styles, black and white, color, soft focus, white, blurry, whatever. Doesn't really matter. As long as they're happy, then that's the key thing. So I would just say, oh yeah, they're great, beautiful. Unless
it's a person being dragged up a hill. Well, I was just about to say that's very, very diplomatic of you, Kev. Well done. Ding, you've passed. You may join the government.
You're in. There's a woman outside.
Oh, Kev, stop. You'll get us in trouble. It'll get us in trouble. Have we got time for one more Facebooky one, or have we done everything this week, do you think? Should we call the meeting to a close?
Yeah, I think so, before I get into too much trouble.
Yeah, probably best. Well, we do need some more questions, actually, because we're running a little bit... it's a summertime thinness thing, isn't it, really? It always happens summertime. Where we could do with a few questions, few thoughts, just send them in. So there's two ways to do it. Number one, you can send them to the email address, which is click@fujicast.co.uk, or you can go inside the Facebook page, or group. Now that I've managed to, I didn't realise that thing with the announcements thing. But now the announcement is properly at the top again. You can leave your questions there, can't you, Kev? Are we running out there as well?
There's still a few to get through, but yes, absolutely, we always need more.
Yeah.
More the merrier.
So send them in there. Right, are you doing any more hip-hop stuff that we should be aware of?
No, just doing back to country. I've got a bit of Pam Ayres and the Wurzels on today.
Pam Ayres?
Yeah, I'm doing a poetry session.
Are you? Oh.
Well, I'm going to start with the poetry session.
Was that inspired?
Love Pam Ayres. Do you remember Pam Ayres?
I do remember Pam Ayres. She had her own television show, didn't she?
She did. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
Is she still with us then, Pam Ayres?
Yeah.
And what about
around the West Country, drinking cider with the Wurzels?
With the Wurzels, probably, yes. Yeah. The Wurzels. If you're American, by the way, or in fact, it doesn't have to just be in America, anywhere outside the UK, go Google the Wurzels. Then you'll have a very different feeling you may already actually, about people that live in the UK.
Oh, he's a cider drinker.
He's a cider drinker. Yeah, that was the big hit, wasn't it? I've got a brand new combine harvester.
Yeah, that's it.
And
I
I'll
got
give
a brand
you
new
the
combine
key.
harvester. Yeah.
Right, so send your questions in. Thank you to our guest today, Michael Beecham. Music is from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. The links will be on the show page as ever. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.